From the Intellifluence headquarters in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, this is the Intellifluence Influencer Spotlight. In each episode, we sit down with an influencer from our network and we discuss their background as well as their unique approach to influencer marketing. James Hills is the creator and publisher of ManTripping.com, a lifestyle and travel site that covers food, drinks, technology gadgets, and automotive, as well as topics related to men's lifestyle. The site began over 10 years ago and serves as an expert resource for men and dads who love to travel. James describes the target male reader of the site as a confident explorer who hates being defined by labels. James and ManTripping have been featured in such publications as the New York Times, Reader's Digest, Fox News, and the Wall Street Journal, to name a few. Awesome. Well, let's get started, James. Thanks for talking with us today. So can you give us an idea of how ManTripping came to be?
Sure. So the non-glamorous way that ManTripping came to be is I was doing a bunch of consulting for a variety of women's sites and even women travel sites, and I had started a marketing agency in Chicago right about the time the dot-com implosion happened. And as luck would have it, I had an office and no real job and also no money to go travel and do the stuff that I wanted. So I just said, hey, you know what? Let's just write about stuff that I love doing. And, I noticed there's a niche where nobody's really serving the guy market, with the exception of some very perient adolescent type content. And, there's at a certain age and a certain marital or relationship status, there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to legal establishments and doing legal chemical activities. That's not me. And so, I kind of say, hey, you know what, there's more out there than what you see in the Hangover. Not all guys are looking to go to Vegas and get some strippers and cocaine and be boys behaving badly. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we can do. And it kind of spun from there. I got a invitation from a gentleman who was running a fam trip out in Atlantic City. And I think he jokingly invited me, because he kind of said, hey, we're running a fam at Showboat coming up next weekend. If you can get out here, I can host you. And I'm in Chicago, so who in the right mind flies, much less drives, from Chicago to Atlantic City for a free freaking hotel night? Like that's preposterous looking back at it. But I was new, it was fun, I had time, so I did it, and it was still one of the coolest trips I've done. Great steak and a fun time. And I kind of spun from there. Other people started inviting me, and I'm like, hey, you know what? This thing where I'm just writing for passion is actually netting cool experiences, and then money started following as the site kind of grew, and 10 years later, here we are.
So 10 years, and that's kind of like how you got into like the influencer space. What I'm really curious about is, how did you make that leap to the point where you're getting to drive cool cars around and take pictures of yourself with the cars? Like, how did you get those relationships started with the automotive brands?
With the automotive brands, I'm not sure exactly how the first connection was, but I do want to give a shout out to Brian Brockman, who he's now one of the senior people at Nissan. At the time, he was the regional guy for the Chicago area. And, I'm not sure if Nissan reached out to me or if I reached out to them, but it was very much like I just expressed with the travel side. It was kind of like, hey, you want to give me a car for a week and I can drive it around? And that's cool. Especially since I do a lot of road trips, and I'd rather spend your tank of gas and your miles on your car than on my car. And it was just kind of fun. And again, I think the key there is passion, and passion along with value. I think a lot of times people just look at me and they're like, oh, that's cool, you get to go to Hawaii. Well, yeah, that's cool. I had a great time. Thank you, Norwegian Cruise Line. But I came back with like 2,000 photos, and I have deliverables that I've got to do. And, it is work. But if it only becomes work, then it shows in the content, and ultimately, it's not going to sustain you. I mean, I had a great concept at about the same time I started ManTripping, called Chicago Convention Help. And back then you could do the MFA sites, and it was just like printing money. But it was boring as hell writing about different hotel reviews with, oh, this hotel has great Wi-Fi. This hotel is 500 steps closer to the convention center. It was money. I mean, these AdSense clicks were beautiful. but I burned out, and it wasn't fun. So the content wasn't good, and ultimately I dumped the site. But that's what I think a lot of people don't understand. Is it's got to be passion. You got to keep yourself motivated. And yes, there's got to be money there to motivate you if that's your thing. But just keep following and keep looking for niches and figure out what people are looking for ultimately.
So, like, aside from Nissan, then, like, what have been your other favorite brand partnerships that allowed you to find that and focus that passion?
Yeah, I would say travel in general. They're not necessarily a singular brand in the travel world, but figuring out where the money is organized and where the opportunities are organized, and figuring out how to appeal to them. I think one of the things that made me vastly more successful was that in the process of building up ManTripping, I got a recruiter that invited me to join the Sears Holdings company, and I ran the social media for Limestone. And at that point, it went from being just I'm writing about stuff that I want to write about because I want to write about it. And if I have spelling errors or if I have links that are broken, who the hell cares? Because it's just me and that's all that matters. To going, oh my God, there's hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars out there waiting to be taken up. And, for better or worse, I missed kind of the golden era of the blogger influencer world where nobody asked questions, because I was on the other fence giving out those millions of dollars. At some point, I was, I'd get emails from buyers at the company and being like, hey, I've got 25 $500 Dyson vacuum cleaners. Can you find bloggers that want to review them? It's like, yeah. And, there was no expectation to be sophisticated or to look at, page rank or UMV or any of those kind of factors. But because I had the blogger side as well, and I knew what ultimately we were measuring, I was able to combine the two into a pretty successful program, and ultimately built the blogger program for Sears and Kmart, and then later for ProFlowers and Sherry's Berries and those brands. And unfortunately, layoffs happened. But when I got laid off, ultimately that was an opportunity for me to say, okay, I get it. I get where the brands are coming from. I get where the retailers are coming from. I get where the bloggers are coming from. Let's create a synergy. Let's create something that works. And that's allowed me to be more successful, I think, in the blogger side than I would have been previously had I just been somebody writing for the sake of writing.
How do you structure your day as a blogger and juggling all your activities?
I have a weird schedule, and part of that's because on any given week I'm in different parts of the country or sometimes different parts of the world, so time zones don't matter fully, but for sake of argument, I'm here in San Diego, so I'm in the Pacific time. I generally go to bed around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I can publish stuff at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, which is 6 a.m. East Coast. It's the people in Hong Kong and the people in China and the people in Japan are all up, and the people in Europe are up as well. So it kind of works as a sweet spot to kind of end my day by publishing stuff. That way, when I wake up at whatever it is, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, which normally would be about now, I'm able to look at feedback and look at questions. Does the brand have a question on the post that I just published or their comments? And then I can fix that. And then I take a siesta around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But that allows me to compartmentalize stuff. It allows me to get work done when there's less emails going on. It allows me to really focus on going through the whole morning's emails from the East Coast when I wake up with time to respond. But that being said, it's a shit show because there's no work day anymore. Mm-hmm. On any given day, I'm working with people in Eastern Europe that are doing coding. I'm working with people in brands in China that are trying to reach the American market, and I'm reaching with ad agencies in New York, and working with communities in Phoenix. So it's worldwide.
Nice. I know that by virtue of we connected, you and I connected on Facebook. So I mostly see your latest whip and all your trips on Facebook. What networks do you personally like to focus on though? Like, do you focus more on the long format stuff like YouTube? Do you like short and sweet? Like, where's your sweet spot?
I am an absolute disciple of Google. I think, and with having long form blog posts for a variety of reasons. One of which is that social media just doesn't provide the long term value in proportion with the time to create the content. And I also like to own things. I mean, I might be old and might be stodgy, but ultimately, a blog post that I wrote 10 years ago. Actually, as a perfect example, there was a blog post that I wrote 10 years ago about mainly golf locations. And for whatever reason, it was picking up some, not great, but relatively decent web traffic. Well, that's something that I can now say, hey, clearly there's a opportunity for mainly golf locations, as an example. I don't know what the actual keyword is off the top of my head, but I can now say, okay, instead of making it a 250-word article with crappy photos and some spelling mistakes, that if I redevelop that article into something that's now 700 or 1,000 words with using the right tools to adjust the keywords, that maybe I can go from 5 or 10 visits a month to 50 or 100 visits a week. And that's something you just simply cannot do with any other platform, including video, because video is kind of, once it's done, it's there. And while there are changes in Google's algorithm on a daily basis almost, although it seems to be less than it used to be, it's generally sane and rational. And its goal is to serve a better search result than political or simply volumetric kind of stuff. Google's already had those battles. We went through those 15 years ago. Yep. Where AdSense versus purely organic search, and I think we have a pretty good medium. Facebook, absolutely not. Facebook has turned itself into completely a paid medium, and it's great for that. It's fantastic for that. And Instagram is just rife with fraud, and I don't know where long-term value for Instagram is, but it's going to be a real reckoning when brands start realizing that they're paying thousands and thousands of dollars for a picture that's gone within a day, versus paying me, hundreds of dollars for a blog post that can generate traffic 10 years from now.
That's interesting. And along those lines, where do you see influencer marketing headed in the next 5 or 10 years? And how do you think brands will be interacting with someone like you? You see any changes on the horizon?
I'm sure there will be other social networks that pop up, and at some point, others are going to drop off. I think even though Pinterest is extremely valuable in terms of traffic for a lot of us, it's past its prime as far as being a darling for the brands. In the last 2 years, I've seen Pinterest go from a required pin for a campaign to not even being mentioned. And some brands don't even accept it as something that would fill your deliverable for X number of social shares. I don't know if Instagram's the next one. I feel that Instagram is backed well enough with the billions and billions of dollars from Facebook that it's not going to go away. But realistically, MySpace went away too. And, there's going to be something else that comes up. And that's why I like to focus on strictly the long form, good solid blog content, stuff that I can own, as opposed to something that I'm leasing from someone else. From a general industry perspective, there's already going through a massive shakeout with influencers, where their brands are becoming what they feel is more sophisticated. Some people are being thrown out with the bathwater. There is a major auto brand that just experienced, honestly, some of the stuff that I've been going through for 10 years with influencers, but they had a major issue, and essentially they've shut down what was a program people are pointing to as being an example of what auto manufacturers should do, because they got burned. And there's dozens and dozens of examples of how brands have been burned by influencers. That's going to be a trend for the next 2 or 3 years. But I think that once I hate to say the bad people, because most of the people are not bad. They're simply just following what they were led to believe was the right way by brands that didn't care, and now they do. As that stuff shakes out, there should be more money for the legitimate people who can show actual influence or have accumulated just a massive enough of legitimate reach And one of the things that I looked at a few weeks ago, was really the difference between influencers and media. You look at people like, on a very macro level, people like Rush Limbaugh or Oprah, who can get up on pretty much any platform and say, this is what I like, or these are my favorite things. And people will act no matter what the product is simply because that person did it. Those people are true influencers. And other people have large audiences. They happen to have both, which is great. But someone like me, for instance, I've always been behind the camera. I've always been focused on the marketing aspect of it. I've been always focused on SEO. I have a medium. I have 150,000 on my site. I think that's small because I'm playing with boys that are bigger than me. But to other people, that's large. But I don't have the immediacy power of saying, I like LG phones, so you should go buy one, and having people suddenly react to that. Some people do. That's not where I have it right now. But I think that opportunity is something that's going to be more and more valuable to brands as we move forward, and as there's fewer people to work with, so that those people should get more money and more opportunities. But there's always going to be value simply in having a broad reach as well. So that's one of my personal projects to really focus on. How do I become more influential? And if you look at my Instagram in particular, one of the big changes I've done is moving from just simply pretty pictures that I knew get good reach and good engagement, to sacrificing some of that raw likes to focus on questions that may get fewer likes but get more comments. Similarly, putting myself, my face. I mean, I'm not a 22-year-old girl running around in a bikini, and I never will be. And I'm certainly not going to be I'm certainly not going to be, a 25-year-old guy with great pecs. Like I'm past that, sadly. But self-confidence sells, and that's one of the things that that was really shocking to me when I started talking to people. I'm like, I actually, so I had a conversation with a great lady who has like 500,000 followers on Instagram. She's very good looking, very talented. And I said, well, it must be easy for you because you have a great body. And what she told me is that she doesn't like showing off her body, but that's what people want. People, and so I started thinking, okay, well, here's somebody who I was looking at thinking, okay, well, all you do is wake up in the morning and throw a bikini on and stand in front of a resort somewhere, and it's easy. And it's not. And like the challenge she had is simply people think because she's beautiful that she's dumb. Well, the reality is she has a degree from London School of freaking economics. I mean, she's a super smart girl, super talented. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you look on YouTube, and there's some just ugly dudes that can't speak worth a damn. But because they like cars, or because they like food, or because they like whatever, they have the self-confidence to get out there and do their thing. And so it's and that's the key. If you just kind of get over that fear and just let your passion come in and have the self-confidence to say, what, this is what I'm going to do. And the internet is so massive that whatever your niche is, there's somebody out there that's going to follow. I mean, my God, have you guys looked at like these eating videos where, I mean, that's ridiculous. Why on earth would somebody watch a guy or a girl sitting in their hotel room eating, a $500 room service thing? But people do, and people are fascinated by it. I don't necessarily say that's what I want to do, but if you look at that and say the difference between them and me is simply they're getting out there and having the self-confidence to own what they do and to define what they do. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do on a self-reflection perspective. And one of the things that I try to coach our guys and men who blog about, that it's okay to do whatever you want. Like if you want to be, actually, I don't know if you guys know Christian from Dad Sews. Okay, he's a dad, and he's a sewing blogger. Like I don't know if there's a more tiny niche out there than that, but he freaking owns it, and he's awesome at it. I love the guy. He's amazing. I wish I could invite him on some of the trips we do and some of their campaigns, but he's so niche. But that being said, like he's been talked about. I think on Mario Batali referenced him. He did some stuff on national TV. The sewing industry is embracing him, and I don't know his financials, but he's making money. He's passionate about stuff. He's got people that are truly caring what he thinks. If there's a pair of scissors that he likes, people are going to go out there and buy it now. And sewing's not a small niche. It's not a niche that I'm familiar with, but there's millions and millions of people that like to sew. And that's one of the things I like to try to help guys understand, even if I'm trying to learn the same lessons, is really figuring out how to make these niches that we all like doing profitable and engaging. Another guy I was working with, Jason Sasaki from Sasaki Time, a few years ago. He was like, "Hey, how are you getting these opportunities? How are you getting to go to these liquor trips? Why are brands sending you bottles of booze?" And I kind of talked to him and said, "Well, you work at Disney. Why aren't you just blowing the crap out of Instagram and Pinterest?" And in the last year or two, he's gone from almost nothing on Instagram and Pinterest. I think he's got, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but I want to say 12 or 15,000 on Instagram now. Incredible engagement, and something he's just passionate about. And he's now monetizing that to, I don't know if he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars on it, but he's making exponentially more than he was before. And that's just something that all of us need to work together and stop operating in silos. And I don't want to follow what the mom bloggers have done, because the mom bloggers, along with the amazing greed and terrible content, they have done a lot of good stuff, and women tended to help each other. And a lot of us guys, we didn't, because either we're afraid of admitting our failures or our weaknesses, but that's got to stop. And in order to succeed, you got to work together. And I have guys that now I can pass an Instagram post to, and I'm not asking for likes, I'm not asking for shares, or I'm not asking for anything that's immoral, but simply saying like, "Hey, here's something cool," making sure we all work together. And there's space out there for everybody. And that's one of the reasons why with these minute blog trips, we've started transitioning from just doing a cool trip somewhere to adding an educational element. Like we're working with it's probably too early to talk about, but to act with it, we're working with the Battleship Iowa over in San Pedro, and we're going to do a war room. And instead of just talking about random stuff, like, hey, how do you do this on the Pinterest? How do you do this on Instagram over a beer? Like, we're going to have a freaking war room on a battleship. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it's one of those cool things that, in reality, it's a conference room. There's nothing romantic about what we're doing, but it's making it cool, making it fun, making it guy friendly. And, hopefully we can create the next generation of influencers, because the market is ripe. There's always opportunity for people who are passionate.
The question I wanted to ask you real quick is, what's the favorite car that you've recently driven on one of your road trips?
That's an easy one, because I just came back from Vegas last week driving the ZR1 Corvette. Oh, and yeah. So 755 horsepower, 715 pound-foot of torque. My only disappointment on that was the fact that we didn't get to take it out on a open track. Like we were on a track, but something like that had a top speed of 212 miles an hour. And what they were really showcasing is how fast it can go, or how quick it was, as opposed to how fast. And so driving it around a private track with quick turns and that kind of stuff was amazing. It felt perfect to sit in. The steering wheel was amazing. The acceleration going around a corner was just unbelievable. But I like to go fast too. Like, it would be nice to take that out there, and you've got some nice roads in Arizona. You know what I'm talking about.
Want to join Intellifluence as an influencer for free? It's easy. Visit Intellifluence.com, click on the influencers link, and then click on the Join for Free button to sign up. Once you have registered, you will get immediate access to our influencer marketplace, where you can browse relevant offers from brands and apply on the spot. You'll also be eligible to receive attractive product and service pitches from brands. There's absolutely no cost to join as an influencer, so we hope you take advantage of our service. Also, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and, well, you know the drill. Until our next episode, keep being awesome.